This is things you might not have heard coming to you from the Conversation Project. The Conversation Project, of course, your home for headline news, information, and pop culture references that are worth chatting about. My name is Jay Coogan Payne, your host for this little ditty here. Today, as normal, 8 stories for you to get down on it with, including the BBC not paying up, but paying a little lip service, if you will. Free buses from New York City not being as freely offered as one would want, and Red Cup Day shenanigans for your Starbucks beginnings, and 5 of the stories to get you into the day this Friday, the 14th of November, 2025, and I guess into the weekend as well. We are going to give you those stories in just a minute. First, remind you that our website home is this. It's a conversationproject.com for more details about how we get the stories, how we get to you, and things we can do for you. Also, at our website, you can find the information on our partnership links and our sponsored links, how you can help us keep the money flowing in, literally the resources coming in to keep these things going and help us along the way. By the way, we'll talk more about our sponsors, and one in particular today, spotlight will be on our main spotlight sponsor, which is Ground News. We'll get them towards in the end, round the end, at the end of the program, after all the stories are told. Now let's get into the actual news for the day. As I said, today is 14 November 2025. These are headline stories that you have to pick out by engaging with us inside of the feeds. Just that simple. Just that simple. Let's get into them. And we use Donald Trump as our teaser graphic today, although it's not a big Trump does stuff day, but it's the big stuff done around and through and about Trump today. And the first story is basically the Trump story. The BBC has issued a personal apology to the president for a panorama segment that spliced his January 6th remarks in a way that critics said was incitement. It's basically out of context, so they apologize. The problem, the broadcaster also said that Trump's lawyers' demand for damages, arguing the edit was editorial error, is not happening. Not legally defamatory act. They say they're sorry that his feelings got hurt, but they're not going to pay up to make him feel better. A non-rebroadcast decision and an internal review signal standards lightning, making sure that even though the BBC maintains it met its legal obligations, even though people are wondering whether it really is a big deal. Now, this is one that actually has some actual teeth to it, where the actual cut did make things look a little different. So there was a little different than maybe CBS editing some words in a promo for Kamala Harris that Trump thought was election engineering that didn't work because Kamala Harris didn't win the election or something. The flap actually arrives as leadership's terms and some charter questions about the BBC are going on with its governance. Will the BBC actually survive itself regardless of this thing here? We will see soon, as legacy media in all forms are starting to see some sort of cracks in their armor and all sorts of stress going through. Will this be the beginning of the end for the British Broadcasting Company, which was born essentially days in history, days from now? It's one of my history lesson things. I think it was yesterday or maybe today. So it was born on this day in the radio. Yeah, the free buses. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is basically putting the kibosh on the free bus ban because, reviews. The governor of New York says she's not ready to move forward on a citywide free bus plan floated by the mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Albany's stance is that fare revenues still underwrite MTA's operations. Essentially, the buses got to pay for themselves, and any shift has to be means tested or paired with some new funding. If no one's paying for the buses can't pay for themselves. So this means, I guess, a mixed message for riders in public transportation. They expect some sort of pilot program or target discounts coming soon because the new mayor said they're coming. Not universal zero fare, though. So that's something that could actually happen. We're not going to just welfare the buses. There will be some sort of management to what's happening so that people who don't ride often will pay a fuller price and people who ride often get a discount of some sort. But we're going to see how this plays out, as the governor or the state is not ready to toss off all fundings for the buses in New York City because they got to pay for themselves. Politically, the pause lets the governor own the fiscal guardrails while New York is negotiating. It's the city negotiating its priorities for its next budget coming forward. They got to get a budget done first before they can actually do this magic thing about free buses and state-owned grocery stores, which also aren't going to be as easy to do as Mr. Zomdami is saying in his religious speech. So the word review is essentially what we're sort of focusing on. What does that actually mean? Does it mean the real definition, as in we're going to take a look at it and see what we can do, or is it just a way to say we're not doing it, but this is our pause word to use it? We shall see. Two very popular, or based on your view, politicians in the news right now for hospitalization issues. Starting off with civil rights icon Reverend Jesse Jackson, who has been hospitalized. The 84-year-old civil rights leader has been hospitalized and asked for support and prayers from the family. Says asked for support and prayers for him. Statements have referred to his recent health battles while avoiding specific diagnosis details. He's 84 years old, so there's plenty of things that could be wrong with him. The particular thing is not important. We are praying for some sort of healing and push and health for him. Expect coordinated updates through the family representatives and Rainbow Push channels to curb any speculation of anything serious going wrong. So that's what's there. That's what's out there. And now this is going to impact community organizers. Is going to impact some churches and organizations and people that have been mentored in the Rainbow Push organization and by directly by Reverend Jackson. I have a complicated history with Reverend Jackson as a younger person getting into politics. Not necessarily before I did more of my push towards a more conservative sort of view, which I still say I'm right center. But it was the question I had about basically the leaders we pick, which is the same question I have right now, and why was Jesse Jackson the quote unquote leader that we deserved at the time? Still someone that I believe may not have been the best candidate, at least from my point of view, but I didn't get a chance to pick these things. We do not want any ill will against anyone in any case on any level. So we're looking for healing, looking for peace, looking for something of a factor that will bring something to Reverend Jesse Jackson. Meanwhile, Senator John Fetterman had to be hospitalized in Pittsburgh after a walk time fall that tied to a ventricular defibrillator flare up in his office. A minor facial injuries basically fell, some bruises, some scrapes. Doctors are adjusting his medications, and his team reports he's recovering well from this incident. The incident here follows a 2022 stroke and a 2023 impairment treatment for depression, and all that comes to the context that is the man who is John Fetterman. He's used those diagnoses, which have been extremely important and extremely real, to transform his role, his job, his office, allows him to walk around in the hoodies he was famous for as lieutenant governor, and now he does that on Capitol Hill often, and just sort of being what he is. He, I don't want to say he did a flip flop. I did a flip flop in some of his policies that he ran for once he got into office, and has been a staunch supporter of bipartisanship, you can call it that, or just sort of leaning towards some of the conservative ways when he fought more of a liberal sort of fight getting into office. And it looks like he'll stay in office. Doesn't look like anybody's getting rid of him anytime soon. But right now, planning around his schedule has been a big deal. We'll see how things play out in the future. Taking a quick pause from the news stories we have, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to this one right here. And anything we produce out there, whether it's a hot take, whether it's our podcast, whether it is one of the newsletters out there, find some way to like it, show us that you like it, so I know that the news that we're providing for you is good news. Now, remember, you do help us pick these stories out by engaging with us on our feed, so you have some say with this and some of the blame as well. But we know that we're picking the right batch of stories, and I'm also giving the right amount of commentary along with it by how you engage in it. And if the algorithm thinks, hey, this is a keeper, maybe they'll share it with more people, and I can ask for less resources from you because there's more people engaged in the set. It's like that. If you know people, like-minded folks who would enjoy this type of programming, share with them directly, and we can get more folks in the range. And if you're not getting this directly into your feeds, subscribe, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook or X or any other of the places we are. We're on TikTok as well, as I said, podcast and audio, and of course, our newsletter for emails. Find us, lock us in, find us the best way you want to engage with us, and we'll do our best to keep the best coming to you. This is an interesting story that I'm glad you guys actually engaged into, and we're talking about it because it's one that totally escaped my mind that this would be a problem. The headline for the story we have at number 5 is Outrage grows after AI generated photo sparks panic over fake Texas school fire. But an AI generated image claiming that a Houston area high school was ablaze. It went through group chats and social media feeds and panicked parents and students, as you would expect. Police later confirmed that there was no fire. The episode is now a live case study in image of verification failures. Essentially, someone put out a bit of a hoax and it went viral. It went bad fast. Districts are updating escalation trees, and our local officials want a platform level circuit breakers and viral emergency claims. Make sure they can kill these things before they get out of hand. So content safety takeaways are pretty obvious. Make sure you publish the how we verified this boxes on breaking news. Make sure that you know that things are true or false going forward. We will, of course, keep our eye out for things, make sure that we're not making things worse, if you will, by jumping on fake stories and going forward. Now, in our defense, and we've done this in a couple of cases and not necessarily by default, the way we do things, we look for stories that are trending, that are interesting, that are big at the time. And then we will not bring it back up again unless there's some update going back and forth as opposed to the conversational thing, or if it just keeps coming back again. Very often, or actually not very often, we'll see a story that seems too good to be true and we'll put out there, and it is, and then we'll come back to it and talk those back. But very often, we actually put up stories that are too early to be chatted about. We'll put something up because we see a quick headline, and it'll take 2 or 3 days for it to become a mid-terminal type story within the mainstream media because they're dealing with, Donald Trump stuff and Powerball stuff and things like that. We will see our best to do what we can to make sure we're not a problem, part of the problem, a actual problem. Sometimes we are the problem, and do our best to make sure that we're not spreading the fake stuff out there. And if you're seeing something that's not so great, send it to us, debunk it, and help you out as well. Employees by Starbucks launched a 65 store strike as the company actually began its busy Red Cup day. Great way to catch attention of people of things that are wrong with your company is to start strikes and start some unrest on the days that you start a big promotion for the nation. Starbucks Workers United coordinated a 65 store strike on Red Cup Day to protest the scheduling and bargaining delays of the workers, essentially getting them bad schedules and not bargaining in good faith for their upcoming contracts. The union tactic is a calendar sensitive hit because Red Cup Day, the day they start selling the special Red Cups for Christmas time, is a big deal. It forced news coverage of the issue and pressure local managers to get people to show up for work. Starbucks says the stores remain open and is engaging in good faith talks. The union says not quite so much. They assert unfair labor practices, as they do, as unions tend to do. Now, keep an eye out on your local Starbucks and see how the turnout is for these strikes, how the turnout is for people showing up to work, and that's going to happen if they actually have picket photos there as well, and whether people are turning to other places. Seven Brews is now the popular coffee chain here in central Arkansas. People can drive through, grab it, and go. Whether that's the case, or they're picking up at the 7-Eleven, how you're getting your coffee, how they're getting their stuff done, and whether this will be better work environments for cases for the Starbucks workers. Apple has introduced a new digital ID feature that allows travelers to use their iPhones at TSA checkpoints. This is a good thing. The digital ID is a passport derived credentialed Apple wallet, and it launched in beta at TSA checkpoints across 250 plus airports across the nation. Now, right now might not be the best time you think to launch one of these things with all the other issues going on, but hey, I think it was already planned, and you can pull that horse out of the barn at this point. And it's not a new passport. It's not a replacement for any other actual documentation. It is an airport use convenience layer that on device verification with consent prompts for you there. It will not keep you from going, will not allow you to go overseas travel outside the nation. It's just something that if the airport allows it, much like a clear pass, it's something that's pre-approved, pre-played for that could speed things up for you domestically. But it's not actual verification. It's not well, it's verification, but it's not actual identification. So it emphasizes privacy controls and the ability to signal from Apple for police scrutiny if something goes wrong. So that's there. Travelers should actually clarify when agents will actually still ask for a physical ID and how to prep the wallet ahead of security so you don't slow down the lines and make things worse for everybody else. Meanwhile, people not using these Apple ID wallets that come to the States on visas have other issues to go for. Yes, they need their paperwork. Yes, they need some sort of passport. But guess what? We will discriminate. We'll discriminate big, and it literally is kind of about looks. Senator Marco Rubio has amplified reports that the state is denying and may deny more visas over obesity, cancer, diabetes, citing public health grounds. If you are sick, don't come here. If you are sick, don't come here. And if you're fat, which could mean being sick sooner or later, don't come here. Axios has this big story write up where they note the legal battle is right here, existing for medical inadmissive rules. And we can do that all the time. So there's nothing really wrong about that, nothing really different about that. The big deal is targeting specifically folks who are obese, whatever that means, and of course, people with diabetes and cancer. Diabetes is a chronic health condition, and cancer, well, cancer just base out sucks. Advocacy groups warn that the framing segmentation of chronic illness for immigration lawyers want transparent guidelines, not just viral anecdotes. They want the actual kind of guidelines to look for. Not really complaining about what they're asking for, but just saying, and they're fat, so they can't come in, is a bit on the much side. So watch the State Department as they issue clarifying cables or some Q&As about what's going on to bring people in. Now, here's the real takeaway from this for anyone who may be applying. If you maybe watch this overseas and you're watching me to get a gist of what the states are like so you can get that, edge on your test. More medical documentation requests will be asked for on your way in, period. They want to know more about your medical history. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, as I said. This is something to check into, not necessarily something that's going to be a hold up. The obesity thing, that might be a bit much, but diabetes and cancer and some other chronic illnesses, knowing more about people coming into the nation and what they have coming in isn't necessarily a bad thing. And that was a great thing. Ground news. Ground news is awesome. Ground news is a great thing that we use at the Conversation Project to help us go through our news projects and help you to learn more about the news you're actually taking in on your daily life. It is the way to see more news from more sources and more perspectives than you ever thought of. Whether it's a local story, a national story, or an international story from wherever you are, you can see the sides where they come through from angles you wouldn't expect from people who believe things not quite the way you believe them, siloed from other sort of news sources. And if you use something like their Vantage Plan, you get even deeper details, and they'll give you something from their blind spot feature, allows you to see the stories that are literally being overly siloed to you back and forth. Now, if you use our affiliate link, this is the conversationproject.com/ground news. This is the conversationproject.com/ground news. You get a great deal. We get a small deal because we get a small commission for you joining in on the group using our link. You get 40% off their news plans off the bat, and you can get the Ground News Vantage plan for less than $10 a month with great news all around. So check it out right now. Yeah, we're done with news. Right now is fine. This is conversationproject.com/ground news. Check out more sponsors at our website, but we want to spotlight Ground News because they have been a stalwart defender of us, defender of news, defender of things. We're so glad to be able to be a part of the family. Now, the family includes going to our website and finding out more stuff about us there for all the stuff that's there. This is the conversationproject.com. Also, our email address, the conversation inbox, gmail.com. Be like a family and yell and scream profusely at me for random things because that's what family's all about. Follow us on Facebook and X for more insight on what we're talking about. You'll see some of the stories we may talk about as we post them every 50 minutes or so onto those feeds. And you can engage in them if you like it. Click on it, read it, do what you can. The higher score we get, the better chance we have of talking about it in the next iteration. Our next iteration, as this is Friday, will be Monday. On Monday, we'll have you 10 stories to add to a little bit of extra depth because we'll have 2 extra days to go through, and 10 stories that you helped us deem conversational that will start off your week with your water cooler work pretty gosh darn good, if I must say so myself. Friday the 14th of November, 2025 is not quite over. In fact, it's very much early, not quite over. It is 5:53 Central Time AM as I'm reading this to you right now. So thank you so much for being with us. If you're on with us live, if you're watching us in the future, then let us know where you're watching us from, how it's going, and what we can do for you to make it a better watch. Yes, it probably means you don't get up quite as early. So moving it later is one thing we could do. But day job. You want to pay in some extra money and be a big time producer, big time sponsor, you can ship that. In the meantime, love you, mean it. Had a great week providing for you the news that was like literally the actual news this week. And we'll do our best to keep on going. We'll have an update for a health update somewhere in the middle of this weekend. I will record that for you going forward. And some of the things we're looking forward to as we are now in the middle of Q4, getting into halfway through the month of November, prepping for December and January. We don't do resolutions around here, but we have some plans that we want to do and some targets that we hit surprisingly this year, and some targets we want to set next year that hopefully won't be surprises. They'll be flat out knockouts. Once again, love you, mean it. Let's get out of here. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your day. Enjoy yourselves and your loved ones.